Don't think of a contract as a paperwork. Think of it as a business insurance. You don't create a contract just to win a project. You create it to protect your business if tomorrow something goes wrong. Hi, welcome to K2 Contracts. Today we'll be discussing about the most important topic. Why is contracts management essential for MSMEs? An MSME, a simple question. Have you ever delivered a project and then struggled to collect your payment? Or maybe you have had a client with asking just one more revision until the project becomes twice the work cost or little bit more. Or maybe you have a trusted vendor, only you find later that the delivery was delayed or not up to the quality, whatever you expected. And now customer unhappy because of someone else's mistake. Have you ever noticed all these things? Because this generally happens every day. And when they do, most of the business owners think, maybe I should speak to a lawyer. Be honestly, by the time you're looking for your help, you have already reached the expensive stage. The damage has already been incurred or started. The time has been lost. Relationships have been affected. Cash flow has taken hit, and sometimes even your reputation is in the stake. So now here is a good news. A lot of these situations can actually be prevented not by filing cases, not by threatening legal notices, or definitely not by downloading a free contract in the internet or through ChatGPT. They can be prevented much earlier through something every MSME should understand, and that is called contract management. Hello everyone, this is Vijay Krishna Bodu. I'm the founder of K2 Contacts and I helped hundreds of professionals and MNCs throughout work in contracts management. We work with the students to help them understand how contracts actually function in the real world. Every day, we see businesses losing money over issues that could have been avoided with better planning, clearer agreements, and proper contracts management. So, today I want to share some of the practical lessons with you. Today, we are going to talk about why contracts management is becoming one of the most important business skills for MSMEs. We all understand that contracts actually do why simply drafting a contract isn't enough. What the contracts management life cycle looks like and how we a small business can protect itself without having an in-house legal department. If you are a founder, entrepreneur or someone managing projects, clients or vendors, this is one skill that will support almost every other business function. You know one thing, I have noticed that the most of the MSMEs are incredibly good in what they do. They know how to build the projects, deliver services, solve customer problems, and create value. That's why they survive and grow. But somewhere along the way, contracts became afterthought. They're treated like a paperwork, something you quickly sign because a project needs to start, or because the client says, "Don't worry, we'll sort it out later." The problem is businesses don't lose money because that wasn't done. They lose money because the expectations were never documented properly. The client expects one thing, and you understand something, the vendor promised timelines verbally, your team assured another, payment terms were discussed over a phone call, but never written to the agreement. 6 months later, nobody remembers who said what. The only thing everyone remembers is that there's now a disagreement. And this is where a contract becomes your business insurance. People often think the contract exists to help you win a project. That's only a small part of it. The real value of contract shows up when something goes wrong. That's every clause you have written starts protecting your business, your payment terms, your scope of work, your limitation of liability clause, termination clause, consequential clauses, your indemnity provisions, your dispute resolution provisions, and suspension provisions, your confidentiality obligations. Incredibly, because important, they tell everyone exactly what was agreed. For an MSME, one poorly managed dispute can block payments for payments months. It can delay salaries. It can affect vendor relationships. It can stop new projects because your cash flow is stuck. And if you are got into the blacklisted category, you cannot bid for that customer again. Large corporations may have legal teams, finance teams, commercial managers having managing these situations. But most MSCs don't have that luxury. As founders, you are wearing five different he acts every day, and you are managing sales in the morning, operations in the afternoon, finance in the evening, and customer support in the night. Understanding contracts is simple, another one of those leadership skills that helps protect everyone else they build. Before we even talk about contracts management, let us first understand what a contract actually is. Because I think lots of people overcomplicate the word. The moment we hear contract, we imagine a 50-page legal document full of complicated clauses, legal jargon, and terms about that only lawyers can understand. But honestly, that's not what a contract is. A contract is simply an agreement between two or more parties where everyone clearly understands what they're expected to do, what they'll receive in return, and what happens if something doesn't go according to the plan. That's it. Every business already works on contracts, whether you realize it or not. Your client agreements, vendor agreements, employment contracts, software subscriptions, office lease, purchase orders, consultancy agreements, confidentiality agreements. And these are the contracts, but they create rights, obligations, and responsibilities. The purpose of contract is not to make business difficult. It's actually the opposite. A good contract removes assumptions. It replaces the verbal promises with written clarity. Everyone knows the scope of work, the payment schedule, the timelines, the deliverables, the ownership of intellectual property, confidentiality obligations, warranties, indemnities, and even how disputes will be resolved if they arise. And here is something I always tell the founders, a contract is not written for the day everything goes well if it is written for the day. Something goes wrong when the project is running smoothly. Nobody opens it. But the moment there's a problem, expectations go increase, a missed deadline, our quality, quantity, our disagreement, our responsibilities, everyone immediately starts asking, what does the contract say? The document suddenly become the most important file in the project. Now this is probably the biggest misconception in the business world. Many people think if they drafted a contract, the work is done. They assume that once both parties sign, the contract will automatically protect. Unfortunately, business doesn't work that way. Let us say you have a beautifully drafted agreement. Every clause is perfect. Every risk has been covered. Both parties sign it. Great. But then 6 months into the project, the client requests additional work through WhatsApp. Your project manager agrees for the phone call. Someone extends the deadline through email. Payment milestones change during a meeting, but nobody updates the agreement. Suddenly, the signed contract is no longer reflects what's actually happening in the project. This happens for more often than the people think. The contract didn't fail, the management of the contract failed. That's why the field of the contracts management is not just contracts drafting is only the beginning. Once the agreement is signed, someone has to monitor the obligations, keep track on the milestones, communicate changes, record approvals, manage variations, identify risk, handle claims, and make sure every decision is properly documented. Otherwise, even the best written contract slowly loses its value because the project has moved in one direction while the paperwork stays somewhere else. This is really exactly why the contracts management professionals, they're not sitting all the day writing agreements. They're making agreement continues to protect the business throughout the entire project. There are communications and amendments to the contract clauses and minutes of meetings, variation orders, discussions, submission of claims. All these are the important activities of a contract manager. So let us understand what actually happens after a contract is signed. Because this is where most MSMEs knowingly, unknowingly leave themselves exposed. The first stage is contract draft. This is where the agreement is created, the scope, payment, timelines, confidentiality clauses, intellectual property, limitation of liability, force majeure clause, termination rights, dispute resolution mechanism. And another important point is the drafters will write a contract that which you didn't do anything, the work. They assume that the work has to be performed in such a way according to the laws, according to the requirements, and the parties will be doing that works to achieve the object. And the second stage is common contract communication. And honestly, this stage is ignored by most businesses. The project team, finance team, procurement operations, and even the client should clearly understand that the contract actually says. There's no point having a fantastic document, agreement. If the people executing the project have never even read about it, know about it, and many disputes happen simply because operation team doesn't know what's contractually agreed. Then comes contracts execution. This is where the real work begins. Deliverables are completed, payments are released, purchase orders are issued, timelines are monitored, milestones achieved, every obligation mentioned in the contract starts becoming part of the day-to-day business operations. And after that, claims management. Now, that good gets paid, every word claim. A claim doesn't always mean a lawsuit. A claim simply means one party delivers they're entitled to do something because of what happened during the project. Maybe there was a delay, maybe the additional work performed, maybe the cost increased due to changes requested by the client, resolved professionally before they become bigger issues. Then we have dispute management. Sometimes disagreements are unavoidable. The important question is whether the dispute becomes emotional or remains contractual. If every communication, approval, variation, and obligation has been properly documented throughout the project, resolving disputes become much easier because the facts already exist. Finally, if everything fails, the matter may move towards litigation or arbitration. This is usually the last stage. Honestly, no MSMEs or the customers wants to reach there because litigation costs money not only to one party who gone there but other party who is defending it. It affects relationships, it distracts founders for growing the business. The entire objective of contracts management is to reduce the chances of reaching this stage in the first place itself. And when you look at the complete life cycle, you will realize something very important. Drafting is only one step. The majority of the work happens after the signatures are done. Now, let us address the question everyone is asking to it. Can't AI just do all of this? Honestly, AI is an incredible tool. It can draft the first version of the contract, explain legal issues in simpler language, summarize lengthy agreements, and make presentations on the agreements and even suggest clauses based on the type of the project you are working. We ourselves encourage professionals to use AI because it saves time and improves efficiency. But here's where the main businesses make a costly mistake. They assume that if AI can draft a contract, it can manage also. Those two are completely different things. He has never worked on about the project. It doesn't know your client. It doesn't know whether there's a first project together, whether you have built a relationship over the last 5 years. It doesn't understand the commercial priorities. Your cash flow challenges, your vendor relationships, are the risks are unique to the business. And the same thing manufacturing, imagining your supplier misses every deadline or because of transport strike. Should you impose liquidated damages or should you grant an extension? Should you have a formal notice or you should have aim the delivery schedule? AI can explain with each clause means, but it cannot understand the commercial consequences, practical consequences of the decision you make. So the real professionals, what exactly do they do is tomorrow you are going to do work activity for completing your objective. That work activity, they imagine, they visualize, they analyze and do it in the paper. These are the activities we have to perform and this is how we have to do. And this is what the permissions or approvals we have to get. And the whole operational mechanism which we didn't even start it, it's everything imagination. That imagination, perfection, these professionals will make it on your paper, that is called your contract. That's why businesses don't hire software to manage relationships. They are professionals. You can see the big companies having more than 200 legal team, 300 legal team, who understand contracts, understand business, and know how to balance the legal obligations with commercial realities. Now, if you're running a small or medium-sized business, I'm not saying you need to become a lawyer. You don't need to memorize the legal provisions. You don't need years of legal education. You don't even need to draft every agreement yourself, but you absolutely need to understand the contracts you are signing, what you are supposed to do, what is your customer supposed to do, how the whole operation is based to achieve the objective. It's not only money. You have to do some work and that work should be recognized by the customer. You should know what your obligations are. You should know when the payments become due. You should understand your liability if something goes wrong. You should know who owns the intellectual property you are creating. You should understand how project changes. How project changes should be documented and approved. You should know what happens if the client delays approvals, if the vendor differs, or if the project gets terminated halfway through. These aren't the legal decisions, these are business decisions. Every founder makes them, whether they realize it or not. Think about your finance. You're probably not a chartered accountant, but you still understand your profit and loss statement, your revenue, your expenses, your taxes, because they're part of your running business. Contracts are exactly the same. You don't have to become a contracts manager, but understanding the fundamentals of contracts management help you to make the commercial decisions proper. And as your business grows, this becomes even more important. The contract becomes bigger and stakeholders increase, the risk become more complex, and one poorly managed agreement can do undo years of hard work. One thing we realized after working with businesses and professionals is that people don't struggle because contracts are too complicated. They struggle because nobody teaches them what happens after the signatures are done. Most people stop at contract drafting. Real business beginners starts from the contract drafting only. Someone has to communicate the contractual obligations to project team. Someone has to monitor milestones. Someone has to document the scope changes. Someone has to identify the risk before they become claims. Someone has to manage claims before they become disputes. Someone has to ensure the contract continues protecting the business from the day it's signed unless the project is completed. That's the complete contracts management life cycle, and that's exactly where businesses create or lose value. This is why we have designed our contracts management master's program around practical learning instead of only classroom theory. Only 6 months participation make you to learn the complete life cycle of contracts management, including contract drafting, review, contracts communication, claims management, contracts understanding, dispute management, litigation management, and important legal principles in 5 semesters through practical assignments over 25 modules in 125 classes, internships, industry exposure, resume building, interview preparation, and professional skill development. So you have to present yourself as a professional to your interviewer. Our objective is simple. We are not trying to create a people who can only draft contracts. We are preparing the next generation of contracts management professionals who understand how contracts work throughout an entire project and how they help business reduce risks, protect profits, and make better commercial decisions. Whether you are a student preparing for your first job, a working professional looking to move into higher value roles, or a business owner who wants to protect the business they have worked so hard to build, practical knowledge creates confidence, and confident professionals make better business decisions. So, if there is one thing you would like to remember from today's conversation, is this: don't think of a contract as a paperwork. Think of it as a business insurance. You don't create a contract just to win a project. You create it to protect your business if tomorrow something goes wrong. Every project starts with trust, but businesses grow because they have clarity, accountability, communication, and proper documentation. Thank you. We'll catch up in the next video. Bye.